Successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. In this Word Made Digital podcast, we're going to be talking about how to take the ideas in your head, the dreams, the products, the podcast, the YouTube channel, the thing you want to do to improve your work and your ministry, and actually make it happen. Hello my friends, welcome to Word Made Digital Tutorials. I'm Joanna LaFleur. This tutorial is all about how to actually do the things that you have ideas to do in your head. And I think you probably have very good ideas, and so we want to help you make them happen. Thank you so much to Compassion Canada for making this happen. This tutorial is brought to you by them. They are all about partnering with the local church around the world to lift children out of extreme poverty, and it's a privilege to represent them and be part of them and making these tutorials happen. All right, so let's talk about this whole idea of how to make the ideas happen. I know because I have some of these ideas myself, and I definitely used to have them in the past before I started going. This tutorial was once just an idea in my head, this series of videos that we're creating, the podcast that now has, hundreds of thousands of downloads, Word Made Digital podcast. It started as an idea in my head with a bunch of false starts. There's a whole tutorial video you can check out about that, how I actually got that podcast off the ground with some practical things. But the idea of consistency instead of just occasionally. I get asked all the time, in the DMs or when I run into people, it's friends, it's people I don't know, it's people at churches and people in my consulting and client work, the coaching work that I do. They're asking about, what do I think about their latest idea? They'll come to me with a great idea for a podcast, or they'll come with an idea of the YouTube channel they want to start, or a product that they think can actually improve the ministry, the charitable work, the church work that they do. And I love hearing those ideas because it's so exciting to hear the passion, but often that's where it stops. And we all know that in ourselves. We all know that. So what is something that we can do to actually move from just these ideas that we have in our heads to actually making them happen? Here's a few tips. Tip number one, stop waiting for perfection. I think talk is cheap, but action is expensive. And so we can talk a lot about things, but then when we actually go to do it, we can feel the cost of it. And so we get stuck because we want it to be perfect. We think if we're going to do something, we should do it right. Isn't that how we often feel? And so we get stuck because, the idea isn't quite perfect enough, or I'm still kind of working on some things. And we probably don't use the word perfect because we know it's never going to be perfect, but we always wait because we want it to be just 10%, just 20% better than what we're doing now. But here's the honest truth. If we don't get started, it will never actually be that 10% better, that 15% better. It will never become perfect. If we are waiting to be perfect, we're going to be waiting forever. And I think you know that, so I want to encourage you to start today. The only way you can learn how to make it, more perfect is to actually do it. You learn by doing. You improve by doing. And so I want you to get out there. Don't get stalled on that. I still have some questions. I'm not quite sure how it works. You're only going to discover that along the way of making your idea come to life. So start, even if it's not perfect. The next thing I want you to do is make a plan on your schedule with yourself to work on your idea. Even if it's 30 minutes, 2 mornings a week, or it's an hour on Thursday nights, or you're going to block off Saturday mornings to work on this project, this idea, this concept that you have, whatever it is. We know this with if we're trying to work on nutrition and health and going to the gym, or if we're trying to make an appointment to see a doctor, or we're trying to just make an appointment to see a friend. If we don't put stuff on the calendar, it's just not going to happen. It's going to fall down the list of priorities because there's always stuff that comes up that crowds it out. Our best ideas just keep getting shoved further back on the back burner until it just isn't something that we're doing at all. So if this is something that you actually feel that's on your heart, and I challenge you even further, if it's something you feel like the Lord has given you to do, if you feel like God has inspired you with this idea, and you need to do it, then you need to steward it and be responsible for it. Put it on your calendar. You can stop this video right now, pull out your phone, pull out your calendar, and make a decision about where in the next week you're going to spend 30 minutes, an hour, or a bigger block of time to keep working on the project. It might be that you get the momentum by just actually doing 30 minutes a few times a week, rather than saying, well, I don't have a 5-hour block that I can, take to work on this. Okay, do you have 30 minutes? Can you block out 30 minutes? And if you put that on your calendar a couple times a week, it's going to be amazing how much momentum you'll start to build, how much excitement you'll start to build towards your project. And I would say you'll probably start finding those larger chunks of time to work on it because you start to get excited and it starts to increase in its priority in your life. So make it a priority by putting it on the calendar. If you calendarize this idea in your head, this idea for the podcast, the tutorial, the project, the product, make a plan to work on it. There's a verse in the New Testament that talks about counting the cost before you start on building a house. How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to take? How many workers do I need? And it's an analogy that I think is important for the rest of life. My next tip for you is to count the cost of what you are trying to do. I think, for example, with podcasting, people don't realize how much time and effort and work it takes, even if you're in the flow of doing it regularly. It is hours of work, between the recording of the podcast, the scheduling of the guests if you have them, the writing of scripts, the re-recording, the editing, the marketing, the branding, the posting it out there every week. There's so many pieces that are involved. So whatever it is that your project and idea is, I want you to really count the cost before you start. I think one of the reasons also that we don't get forward on the projects and ideas we have is because we had unrealistic expectations from the very beginning. This thing, yeah, it'll only take me an hour a week. Because you're thinking it takes an hour a week to record the podcast, but you're forgetting all the other pieces of the project that will take your time. And so then we can get discouraged and we can get frustrated because we just underestimated it from the very beginning. So make sure you're understanding exactly through a list, write it down, build a spreadsheet, write out all the pieces that are involved and approximately how much per week you think it's going to take, and then start to look at where you can fit that into your schedule to actually make it happen. So my next tip for you is to identify, where are you stuck? You have this idea, it's in your head, or you have this thing that you've half started, but what is the thing that's making you get stuck? So remember, we counted the cost, we got an assessment of really how much time, work, effort, money this is going to take. Make that list, make a spreadsheet, make a chart, write it on Post-it notes, whatever, lay it all out. And then begin to identify which of those pieces are the stuck points, the hard points. Maybe it's because you don't know how to do that thing and you need to ask for help. Maybe that's the next thing that you can do. Ask for help from someone who's gone before you, who's done it before. Maybe you need to pay someone. When I started podcasting, as I keep using as an example, I got stuck a few times because I realized I'm not an audio editor. That's actually something I don't have natural skill in. Most people don't, but also I don't have trained skill in. And so I thought, if I'm ever going to get this podcast off the ground, I could spend a few months learning how to do audio podcasting and editing in my spare time, or I could just hire someone who knows how to do it and pay them a little bit of money, a bit of money every hour of their time to help me edit this raw file into a final product. I do think, of course, you can edit your podcast yourself. And I was thinking, well, surely I can learn to do this. I could edit it myself. But I wasn't doing it. I wasn't consistently showing up to do the work of editing. And so it never got done. And these files would just sit in my Google Drive doing nothing. And so that's where I identified I got stuck and I could ask for help. Where are you stuck on your project? When you look at this whole list of things, counting the cost of all the parts of it, what is holding you back? Is it that you don't know how to promote it? Is it you don't know how to schedule guests? Is it you don't know what camera you need to start your video thing? Or you don't know how to officially open the business so you can charge people money for the product or service? You don't know how to build the website. Whatever it is, I encourage you, rather than beating yourself up about the things you don't know and thinking, well, surely I could learn to do this. You could learn to do it. but you haven't learned to do it yet. So ask for help, invite someone else in, identify those things that you can pay someone else a little bit of money, or identify the person in your life who might even help you do it for free, or for, an exchange of services, something you can barter with them, and then you can get going and get unstuck from your project. Move it forward. My last encouragement, my last tip to you is just, it works when you work it. Work the schedule. Keep plugging away. A lot of the stuff about our ideas gets excited at the beginning, and then when we get into the real work of it, it's less sexy, it's less exciting, it's more the drudgery of getting it out. But there's nothing more exciting than actually seeing your idea really come to life. And the only way you can see that end goal is by actually working it over and over until it's done. Breaking it down into bite-sized pieces that you can do in those 30-minute chunks that you've set aside until you see success, until you see launch. Not perfect launch, but a launch out into the world that's going to help you learn how to do the next reiteration, the next version of it, the even better thing that you do next. But until you get out the first thing, you'll never be able to do the even better thing. So I encourage you to keep going and don't get discouraged. Make plans with yourself, prioritize the idea. Don't get so stuck in ideas that you never actually see your brilliant ideas come to life. I hope these ideas are super practical for you. I want to make a huge thank you to Compassion Canada for making this tutorial possible. I love working with Compassion. It's a real privilege to talk to you and work with them around the idea of children in extreme poverty getting holistic care that lifts them out of that poverty through education, through spiritual care, through sports and activities, through an opportunity to go to school and thrive in their social community. It's an amazing way to get involved, and they do it all through local churches. They only work with a local church partner. I think of a girl named Ria from the Philippines. She grew up in the program. That is, she was a sponsor child herself. Someone identified her and gave her an opportunity. She had a sponsor from the US, and that sponsor wrote to her letters and connected with her all the time. It was amazing to see that relationship grow, and it made a huge impact on her life. Ria said, knowing someone sees you, it changes you. So now fast forward, Ria is an adult. She's an ambassador for Compassion, and she actually sponsors a child in the very village that she grew up in that same community. It's one generation serving the next. This can be your story as you think international and impact and generational influence that you can have. It's an amazing way to get involved. Go to compassion.ca for more information. Thanks so much for checking out this tutorial. We've got all kinds of tutorials here on the channel. So would you hit the subscribe button? We'd love for you to not miss one of these coming out, and check back in the archives. There's all kinds of other tutorials and podcasts here for you to enjoy and to learn from. We want to help you communicate the best news in the world, and we want to equip you in that every day.